A special thank you to each of our subscribers who make this channel possible. Here's today's story. In a significant diplomatic move, the United States has condemned Canada and 4 other nations for their recent decision to impose sanctions on 2 Israeli cabinet ministers. On Tuesday, Canada joined the ranks of the United Kingdom, Norway, Australia, and New Zealand in sanctioning Israeli National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir and Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich. The sanctions were enacted due to accusations that the ministers have been inciting violence against Palestinians in the West Bank. Secretary of State Marco Rubio issued a statement urging these countries to reverse their sanctions, arguing that such measures do not contribute to the U.S. efforts aimed at achieving a ceasefire in the region, bringing home hostages, and ultimately ending the ongoing war. Rubio's statement further emphasized that Hamas is primarily responsible for the disturbances affecting the peace of civilians in Gaza, urging the international community to remember who the true enemy is. The sanctions against Ben-Gvir and Smotrich stem from their alleged promotion of extremist rhetoric, which includes calls for the displacement of Palestinians and the expansion of Israeli settlements in the contested territory. In response to the sanctions, Israeli Foreign Affairs Minister Gideon Saar expressed outrage, stating that it is unacceptable for elected officials and government members to be subjected to such measures. He highlighted the need for a collective response from the Israeli government, led by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who is expected to convene a meeting early next week to discuss the situation. The joint statement from the 5 countries involved in the sanctions condemned the ministers for inciting extremist violence and serious violations of Palestinian human rights. They described the rhetoric advocating for the forced displacement of Palestinians and the establishment of new Israeli settlements as both appalling and dangerous, asserting that such actions are wholly unacceptable. Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand reinforced the stance that extremist settler violence poses a threat to the long-term safety of both Israelis and Palestinians. She articulated that it prolongs the existing conflict and undermines the pathway to a 2-state solution, which is viewed as the only viable route to sustainable peace and security for Israel. Anand clarified that the sanctions specifically target Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, who are part of Netanyahu's coalition government, but not the state of Israel itself. The political landscape surrounding these sanctions has prompted calls from various political figures for broader measures. NDP Foreign Affairs critic Heather McPherson stated that Canada should extend sanctions to all senior members of Netanyahu's government, emphasizing that Canada must respect international law and hold accountable those responsible for the ongoing violence in Gaza. The joint statement from the sanctioning countries indicated that efforts had been made to engage with the Israeli government on the issue of forced Palestinian displacement, but noted that violent perpetrators continue to act with encouragement and impunity. While affirming their support for Israel's right to defend itself, the countries asserted that the actions of the targeted individuals undermine Israel's own security and international standing. The statement also acknowledged the catastrophic situation in Gaza, expressing dismay over the immense suffering of civilians and the denial of essential aid. The sanctions render the designated individuals inadmissible to Canada and prohibit Canadian entities from engaging in business with them. This latest round of sanctions follows a series of previous measures taken by Canada against individuals and groups associated with the expansion of Israeli settlements in the West Bank. In February, Canada announced its last round of sanctions on this issue. The recent developments come on the heels of an open letter signed by Prime Minister Mark Carney, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, and French President Emmanuel Macron, which condemned Israeli military operations in Gaza and called for increased humanitarian aid. The leaders threatened to impose sanctions on individuals and groups linked to the expansion of Israeli settlements in the West Bank if Israel did not take concrete actions to alleviate the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. However, shortly after this letter was made public, Israel announced the construction or recognition of 22 new settlements in the West Bank, prompting further criticism from the international community. Anand reiterated that the new sanctions were a response to the lack of concrete action taken to halt the expansion of settlements, underscoring the ongoing tensions in the region and the complex interplay of international diplomacy in addressing the conflict. That's all for this story. We upload videos every day covering many different subjects, so hit that subscribe button to stay informed. Thanks for watching.